Life has been trying to tell you something. Not quietly. Not gently. Loudly. Repeatedly. Through the job that drains you, the relationships that shrink you, the mornings you wake up and feel the weight of a life that doesn't quite feel like yours yet. And the message has been the same every single time. You were not built for where you are staying. Let me ask you this and NBSP, question genuinely. When was the last time you did something that genuinely scared you? Not horror movie scared. Not dangerous scared. But that specific, deeply personal, stomach-tightening kind of scared that comes from stepping towards something you want but aren't sure you're capable of. The kind of scared that shows up at the edge of a conversation you keep postponing, a decision you keep circling, a version of yourself you keep glimpsing in quiet moments but retreating from before it costs you anything. When was the last time? If you had to think for more than 3 seconds, this conversation is for you. Because here is what nobody says out loud, even though everyone who has ever built anything real knows it to be absolutely true. Your comfort zone is not protecting you. It is containing you. And there is a difference between a shelter and a cage that most people spend their entire lives refusing to examine, because the examination itself requires stepping outside the very place they are trying to protect. Today we are going to examine it. Not theoretically. Not with the kind of polished, sanitized, everything will be fine language that sounds good but changes nothing. We are going to go honest. Deep. Real. Because life has already been doing the hard version of this conversation with you, through pain, through stagnation, through the quiet accumulation of unlived potential, and it will keep doing it until you finally sit down and listen. So let's listen. The comfort zone, what it actually is. Before we talk about killing it, let's understand what we're actually dealing with. Because the phrase comfort zone has been repeated so many times, in so many motivational contexts, that it has lost its teeth. It sounds like a self-help bumper sticker. It sounds like something you'd see printed on a gym poster above a stock photo of someone jumping off a cliff at sunset. But strip away the cliché, and what you find underneath is something genuinely worth understanding. Your comfort zone is not a place. It is a pattern. It is the collection of behaviors, responses, relationships, environments, and self-definitions that your nervous system has learned to associate with safety. It is the accumulated result of every time you tried something and it hurt, and your brain logged that information and built a wall around it. Every time vulnerability led to rejection. Every time ambition led to failure. Every time you reached and fell short, your brain, doing exactly what it was designed to do, said, "Noted. We won't be doing that again." It is not weakness. It is biology. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its primary job, its most ancient, most fundamental job, is not creativity or ambition or self-actualization. Its primary job is survival. And the fastest path to survival is familiarity. Routine. The known. This is why the comfort zone feels so reasonable from the inside. It doesn't feel like a cage. It feels like common sense. Why would I leave a stable job for an uncertain dream? Why would I have that difficult conversation when things are fine the way they are? Why would I try again when I already know what failure feels like? These questions feel rational. They feel measured. They feel like the thoughts of a responsible adult making careful decisions. But underneath them, if you are willing to look, is fear wearing the costume of wisdom. And that distinction matters enormously. The elephant and the rope. There is an old story about elephants that I want to tell you. When elephants are young and small, trainers tie them to a stake in the ground with a rope. The young elephant pulls and strains and fights the rope with everything it has. But it is small. It is not yet strong enough to break free. And eventually, after enough failed attempts, it stops trying. Not because the rope is unbreakable. But because the elephant has decided, from experience, that it is. Years pass. The elephant grows. It becomes one of the most powerful animals on earth, capable of uprooting trees, moving tons of weight, crossing rivers and mountains without hesitation. And yet, it is still tied to the same thin rope and the same small stake. And it doesn't pull. It doesn't even try. Because the most powerful constraint on that elephant is not the rope around its leg. It is the belief, formed in a moment of smallness, locked in by repeated failure, never questioned again, that the rope cannot be broken. Now I want you to sit with something. What ropes are you still tied to that you stopped pulling against years ago? What belief, formed in a moment of weakness, in a season of failure, in a relationship or environment that did not see your value, have you been carrying so long that you've stopped questioning whether it's even true? The rope is still there. The stake is still there. But you are not the same animal you were when you first encountered them. The question is whether you are willing to pull again. The lie the comfort zone tells you. Here is the cruelest thing about the comfort zone. It doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like the truth. It feels like the most honest assessment of your situation available. And it whispers, not loudly, not dramatically, but constantly, persistently, in the background of every decision you face. This is enough. You are not ready. Now is not the right time. What if you try and it doesn't work? What if people laugh? What if you lose what you already have? Better to stay. Better to be safe. Better to wait. These whispers are not random. They are targeted. They know exactly which fears to press, which wounds to poke, which memories of past failure to surface at precisely the moment when you are considering movement. And most people, most intelligent, capable, well-intentioned people, listen to them. Not because they are foolish. Because the whispers sound so much like wisdom. Let me tell you about a man named Garrett. Garrett was a financial analyst. Competent, respected, well compensated. By every external measure, successful. But Garrett had been writing a novel in fragments for 11 years. Pieces of it existed on 3 different laptops, a handful of notebooks, and the back of a receipt he had found in his coat pocket and couldn't bring himself to throw away. Every time he considered finishing it, the whispers came. You have a good job. A mortgage. Responsibilities. Who writes a novel at 43? What if it's terrible? What if you finish it and it means nothing? At least right now the dream is intact, because you haven't tested it yet. And that last line, at least the dream is intact, is the most sophisticated lie the comfort zone tells. It sells you the preservation of potential as a substitute for the realization of it. It tells you that an untested dream is safer than a tested one. That possibility is better than attempt. That the version of yourself you might become is less risky to hold on to, in imagination, than to actually pursue in reality. And so people carry their unopened gifts to their graves. Not because they lacked courage at birth. But because the comfort zone convinced them, slowly and skillfully, that the wrapping paper was the gift. What life does when you refuse to move. Here is the part of this conversation that I need you to hear with your whole chest. Life does not reward stillness. It does not look at your comfort zone and say, you know what, fair enough. You've been through a lot. You deserve to stay exactly where you are, indefinitely, without consequence. Life does not say that. What life does, with absolute consistency, across every human story ever lived, is apply pressure. Not maliciously. Not personally. But with the relentless, impersonal inevitability of a river against a stone. The pressure takes different forms. Sometimes it comes as boredom, that low-level, pervasive sense that something is missing, that this cannot be all there is, that you were built for something your current life has no room for. Sometimes it comes as restlessness, the inability to feel satisfied by things that should be satisfying, the hunger that food and entertainment and distraction cannot touch. Sometimes it comes dramatically, as loss, as crisis, as the sudden collapse of the structure you had been hiding inside. But it always comes. Because life is not static. And a person who refuses to grow voluntarily will be grown, by force, by circumstance, by the accumulated pressure of an existence that is larger than the box they are trying to fit it into. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and built one of the most powerful philosophical legacies in human history, understood this with a clarity that still cuts through centuries. He said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." This is not passivity. This is not resignation. This is the radical, courageous recognition that growth is not optional. That the discomfort of expansion is not a punishment. That the pressure life applies to a stagnant life is not cruelty. It is an invitation. A loud, persistent, sometimes painful invitation to become more than what you are currently allowing yourself to be. The only question is how long you are going to make life ask before you say yes. The cost of staying, a honest accounting. I want to do something with you that most conversations about comfort zones skip entirely. I want to count the cost of staying. Because we are very good at counting the cost of leaving. We can enumerate with remarkable precision and anxiety every possible thing that could go wrong if we step outside the familiar. Every risk, every uncertainty, every worst-case scenario gets a spreadsheet in our minds, detailed, thorough, terrifying. But we almost never count the cost of not leaving. We almost never sit down and honestly ask, what is staying here actually costing me? So let's do that now. Staying in the comfort zone costs you time. Not abstractly, specifically. Every year you spend inside the familiar is a year you did not spend building the life that is actually available to you. And time, unlike money, unlike energy, unlike almost any other resource, cannot be earned back. There is no savings account for lost years. There is no investment that returns yesterday. Staying in the comfort zone costs you identity. Because who you are is not fixed. It is constructed, daily, through the choices you make, the risks you take, the challenges you engage with or avoid. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you are not staying the same. You are choosing a smaller version of yourself. And the gap between who you are and who you are capable of being, that gap does not stay neutral. It becomes a source of pain. A quiet, persistent, low-grade pain that most people medicate with distraction rather than confront with honesty. Staying in the comfort zone costs you respect, your own most importantly. Because somewhere in the part of you that knows the truth, that has always known the truth, you know what you are capable of. And every day you choose not to pursue it, you chip away at the most important relationship in your life. The relationship with yourself. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who built an entire philosophy around the human need for meaning, wrote something that belongs here. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. The comfort zone offers tensionlessness. But tensionlessness is not peace. It is numbness. And there is a cost to numbness that only becomes fully visible when you finally feel something real again, and realize how long you went without it. We have been honest today. Uncomfortably, necessarily, genuinely honest. In the first part we told the truth. We named the cage. We counted the cost. We looked, without flinching, at what the comfort zone actually is and what staying inside it is actually doing to the life you were meant to live. That weight is not discouragement. That weight is awareness. And awareness, in the hands of someone willing to act on it, is the most dangerous and the most beautiful thing in the world. Now we talk about what to do with it. The moment before the move. There is a moment that every person who has ever changed their life knows intimately. It is not the moment of triumph. It is not the moment of arrival. It is not the moment when everything works out and the risk pays off and the people who doubted you go quiet. It is the moment before. The moment when you are standing at the exact edge of the familiar, and everything in your body is saying go back. Your heart is loud. Your palms are doing things palms shouldn't do. Your mind is running every worst-case scenario it has ever constructed with the focused efficiency of a machine designed specifically for this purpose. And yet, something else is there too. Something quieter than the fear but deeper than it. Something that has been waiting, patiently, persistently, without drama, for you to stop listening to the noise long enough to hear it. That something is not recklessness. It is not blind optimism or toxic positivity or the manufactured enthusiasm of someone who has never actually failed at anything. It is readiness. Not the readiness that means you have no fear. But the readiness that means you have decided, firmly, finally, with full knowledge of the cost, that the fear is no longer in charge. That moment is available to you. It has always been available to you. The only question that has ever mattered in the history of human growth, is whether you are going to step into it. The diver. There was a young woman named Sarah who spent 3 summers standing at the edge of the high diving board at her local pool. Every summer she climbed the ladder. Every summer she walked to the edge. Every summer she looked down at the water, which looked, from up there, both very far away and very hard, and every summer she turned around and climbed back down. Her friends stopped watching after the first summer. But Sarah kept climbing. Not because she was getting closer to jumping. But because something in her refused to stop trying, even when the trying looked, from the outside, identical to the failing. In the 3rd summer, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when nobody was watching and the pool was nearly empty and there was no audience to impress or disappoint, Sarah walked to the edge. And she didn't think about the water. She didn't think about the height. She didn't count down from 3 or give herself a pep talk or wait for the fear to subside. She just jumped. The fall lasted less than 2 seconds. The water was cold and loud and she went deeper than she expected and came up gasping and laughing at the same time. And she climbed back up and jumped again. And again. And again. Here is what Sarah told someone about that Tuesday, years later. The jump didn't get easier. I just got tired of the version of myself that wouldn't do it. I want you to hold that sentence. I just got tired of the version of myself that wouldn't do it. Because that is the real turning point. Not when the fear disappears. Not when the conditions are perfect. Not when you have enough money, enough time, enough certainty, enough guarantees. The turning point is when the pain of staying becomes more unbearable than the fear of moving. When you look at the version of yourself that keeps climbing the ladder and turning back, and you decide, with something close to compassion and something close to fury, that you are done letting that version run the show. That is when the jump happens. The truth about growth, it is supposed to hurt. I want to dismantle something that has been doing enormous damage to an enormous number of people. The idea that growth should feel good. That if you are on the right path, it will feel natural and flowing and aligned. That discomfort is a signal to stop. That struggle means something has gone wrong. This is one of the most expensive lies that modern culture sells. And it is wrapped in enough wellness language and aesthetic calm that most people swallow it whole without tasting what's inside. Growth does not feel good. Not real growth. Not the kind that actually changes the architecture of who you are. Real growth feels like the gym, where the muscle is literally being torn before it can be rebuilt stronger. Real growth feels like learning a new language, where you are humiliated daily by your own incompetence before fluency quietly, gradually arrives. Real growth feels like the first year of any meaningful relationship, where 2 separate worlds collide and the friction is real and the work is constant and the comfort is earned rather than assumed. Real growth is uncomfortable by design. Because the nervous system, the same system that built the comfort zone in the first place, does not distinguish between discomfort that is dangerous and discomfort that is developmental. It treats both with the same alarm. It sends the same signals. It generates the same resistance. And this means that the feeling of growth, the actual, in the moment, right now feeling, is indistinguishable from the feeling of threat. They feel identical. Which means, and this is critical, you cannot use how something feels as the primary measure of whether you should be doing it. You have to use something deeper. Something more durable than feeling. You have to use values. Marcus Aurelius wrote, in the quiet hours of the night, in the private journal of a man who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders, something that belongs in every conversation about growth. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The discomfort is not blocking your path. The discomfort is the path. Every moment of resistance you push through is laying down a new neural pathway. Every time you act in spite of fear, you are sending your nervous system a new piece of data: this was survivable. And survivable becomes familiar. And familiar becomes the new normal. And the new normal is a comfort zone that is larger, richer, and more aligned with who you actually are than the old one ever was. This is how the brain is rewired. Not through inspiration. Through repetition under discomfort. The practice, how to actually do this. Let me give you something concrete. Because I believe in giving you things you can use before this video is over. Here is how you actually kill the comfort zone, not in theory, not someday, but starting with the next decision you face. First, name the edge. You know where your edge is. You have always known. It is the thing you circle in your mind but don't touch. The conversation you rehearse but don't have. The application you open and close without submitting. The dream you describe to yourself in the second person: someone like me could do something like that, rather than the first. Name it. Out loud if you can. Write it down if writing makes it real for you. But name it specifically, not "I need to be braver, but I need to send that email. I need to make that call. I need to walk into that room and say the thing I have been swallowing for 6 months." Specificity is the enemy of avoidance. Avoidance lives in the vague. Name the thing precisely and you remove half its power immediately. Second, shrink the first step until it is undeniable. One of the reasons people don't move is because they are trying to cross the entire distance in one leap. They look at where they are and where they want to be, and the gap is so large and so terrifying that the only response available is paralysis. So don't cross the whole distance. Cross 1 foot of it. Not the whole conversation, one honest sentence. Not the entire business plan, one phone call to one person who has done what you want to do. Not the complete transformation, one morning that looks different from the last one. Seneca wrote, "Begin at once to live." Not perfectly. Not completely. Not with everything figured out. Begin. One undeniable step. Small enough that the comfort zone doesn't see it coming. Real enough that it actually counts. And then do it again tomorrow. Third, expect the resistance and refuse to negotiate with it. The resistance will come. Guaranteed. It will come as procrastination and as sudden urgent tasks that absolutely must be done before you can start. It will come as the voice that says today is not the right day, tomorrow will be better. It will come as physical discomfort, the tightening chest, the restless energy, the inexplicable fatigue that appears precisely when you sit down to do the thing. Do not be surprised by this. And do not negotiate with it. The resistance is not information. It is not your intuition warning you of genuine danger. It is your nervous system doing its oldest job, keeping you inside the known. Thank it for its concern. And do the thing anyway. This is what Epictetus meant when he wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Stop grieving the courage you wish you had. Rejoice in the decision you are making right now, with whatever courage is currently available, and let the action itself build more. Fourth, track your evidence. Every time you do the uncomfortable thing, every time you push through the resistance and survive it, write it down. Not to brag. Not to perform progress for anyone else. But because your nervous system needs evidence. It needs a growing record of survivable discomfort to override the ancient assumption that the unfamiliar is dangerous. The more evidence you accumulate, the longer the list of hard things you have done and not been destroyed by, the quieter the resistance becomes. You are building a case, entry by entry, for a new belief about what you are capable of. Build it deliberately. Build it consistently. Let the evidence speak louder than the fear. The garden in winter. There was an old gardener named Thomas who had tended the same garden for 40 years. Every winter, without fail, his neighbors would walk past and shake their heads. The garden looked dead. Brown. Bare. Empty in a way that seemed almost sad after the riot of color it displayed every summer. What a shame, they would say. All that work for nothing. But Thomas never looked at his winter garden with sadness. He looked at it with anticipation. Because Thomas knew something his neighbors didn't. The winter was not the end of the garden's life. It was the most important part of it. Beneath the brown surface, invisible to every eye that passed by and pronounced the garden dead, the roots were doing the most critical work of the entire year. Deepening. Strengthening. Spreading into new soil. Preparing, in the cold and the dark and the apparent emptiness, for an explosion of growth that would be impossible without this invisible season. The garden was not dead in winter. It was becoming. I want you to hear this, wherever you are in your story right now. If you are in a winter season. If things look bare from the outside. If you are doing the internal work that nobody can see yet and the results have not arrived and the neighbors are shaking their heads. You are not failing. You are becoming. The roots you are building right now, through every uncomfortable choice, every boundary pushed, every moment of resistance met with action instead of retreat, those roots are going to hold something extraordinary. Something that will not be possible without exactly this season. Trust the winter. Do the work anyway. Spring is not optional. It is the law. The person on the other side. I want to close with something I need you to feel, not just hear. On the other side of your comfort zone is a person. Not a fantasy. Not a vague, airbrushed, motivational poster version of yourself. A specific, real, fully alive human being who has done the things you keep postponing. Who has had the conversations you keep swallowing. Who has built the thing you keep planning. Who has become, through the specific, daily, unglamorous practice of choosing discomfort over containment, someone whose life actually matches the depth of what they are capable of. That person is not someone else. That person is you, on the other side of the decision you have been circling. And they are not waiting for you with judgment or impatience. They are waiting with something much simpler. Relief. The relief of someone who finally stopped performing smallness. Who finally stopped apologizing for the size of their ambition. Who finally stopped letting fear make the decisions that were always meant to be made by something deeper and truer and more aligned with the actual purpose of their life. That relief is available to you. Not someday. After the next step you take outside the familiar. Even if the step is small. Even if you are shaking when you take it. Even if nobody is watching. Even if you have tried before and turned back. Take the step. The person on the other side has been patient. But they are ready for you to arrive. And then come back here. Because the Stoic path is built for exactly this journey. Every episode we produce is a conversation designed to go deeper than the surface. To challenge the stories you have been telling yourself. To give you the kind of philosophical grounding, honest perspective, and genuine human depth that turns inspiration into transformation. This is not a channel for people who want to feel good for 5 minutes and forget everything by dinner. This is a channel for people who are serious about their life.